From translation, Net New English Translation. This 97th day of the year. Today we are reading passages 2 Samuel 8 to 12. 2 Samuel chapter 8, verses 1 to 13. After this, David defeated the Philistines and subdued them, and he took Metheg-Ammah from the Philistines. He defeated Moab, and the Moabites became David's subjects, bringing tribute. David defeated Hadadezer the son of Rehob, king of Zobah, when he went to restore his monument at the Euphrates River. David captured from him 1,000 chariots, 7,000 chariot drivers, and 20,000 foot soldiers. David hamstrung all but the 100 chariot horses. When the Arameans of Damascus came to help Hadadezer king of Zobah, David killed 22,000 Arameans. Then David placed garrisons in Aram of Damascus, and the Arameans became David's subjects, bringing tribute. So the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. David took the gold shields that belonged to Hadadezer's servants and brought them to Jerusalem. From Betah and from Berotai, cities of Hadadezer, King David took a great deal of bronze. When Toi king of Hamath heard that David had defeated the entire army of Hadadezer, he sent his son Joram to King David to greet him and congratulate him on his victory over Hadadezer, because Toi had been at war with Hadadezer. Joram brought with him various kinds of items made of gold, of silver, and of bronze. King David dedicated these things to the Lord, along with the silver and gold he had taken from all the nations: Edom, Moab, Ammon, the Philistines, and Amalek. Abishai son of Zeruiah killed 18,000 Edomites in the Valley of Salt. David placed garrisons in Edom, and all the Edomites became David's subjects. So the Lord made David victorious wherever he went. 2 Samuel chapter 9, verses 1 to 13. David asked, "Is there anyone left from the house of Saul, to whom I can show kindness for Jonathan's sake?" There was a man named Ziba who belonged to the house of Saul. He was summoned to David. The king said to him, "Are you Ziba?" "I am your servant," he replied. The king asked, "Is there anyone left from the house of Saul to whom I can show God's kindness?" Ziba replied to the king, "There is still a son of Jonathan who is disabled in both feet." The king asked him, "Where is he?" Ziba said to the king, "He is in the house of Machir son of Ammiel, in Lodebar." So King David had him brought from the house of Machir son of Ammiel, from Lodebar. Mephibosheth son of Jonathan, son of Saul, came to David. He fell to the ground and paid homage. David said, "Mephibosheth." He replied, "I am your servant." David said to him, "Don't be afraid, for I will surely show kindness to you for the sake of your father Jonathan. I will restore to you all the land that belonged to your grandfather Saul, and you will always eat at my table." Mephibosheth paid homage and said, "What is your servant, that you should show regard for a dead dog like me?" Then the king summoned Ziba, Saul's servant, and said to him, "I have given your master's grandson everything that belonged to Saul and his family. You, your sons, and your servants are to farm the land for him and bring in the crops, so that your master's grandson may have food to eat. But Mephibosheth, your master's grandson, will always eat at my table." Now Ziba had 15 sons and 20 servants. Ziba said to the king, "I will do whatever my lord the king has ordered his servant to do." So Mephibosheth ate at David's table, just like one of the king's sons. Mephibosheth had a young son whose name was Micah. All who lived in Ziba's house were servants of Mephibosheth. So Mephibosheth lived in Jerusalem, because he always ate at the king's table. He was disabled in both feet. 2 Samuel chapter 10, verses 1 to 19. Afterwards the king of the Ammonites died, and his son Hanun succeeded him. David said, "I will show kindness to Hanun son of Nahash, just as his father showed kindness to me." So David sent some of his servants to comfort him concerning his father. When David's servants arrived in the land of the Ammonites, the Ammonite princes said to Hanun their lord, "Do you think David is honoring your father by sending these men to you? Haven't his men just come to you to spy out the land and overthrow it?" So Hanun seized David's servants, shaved them, cut off their garments at the buttocks, and sent them away. When this was reported to David, he sent to meet them, since the men were deeply humiliated. The king said, "Stay in Jericho until your beards have grown back, then return." When the Ammonites realized that they had become repulsive to David, they hired the Arameans of Beth-rehob and the Arameans of Zobah, with 20,000 foot soldiers, and the king of Maacah with 1,000 men, and 12,000 men from Tob. When David heard about this, he sent Joab and all his elite troops. The Ammonites came out and formed battle lines at the entrance to the city, while the kings who had come stayed by themselves in the open country. When Joab saw that the battle lines were set for attack in the front and in the rear, he chose some of the best troops in Israel and arranged them to fight the Arameans. He put the rest of the troops under the command of Abishai his brother, so they could form a battle line to fight the Ammonites. He said to Abishai, "If the Arameans are too strong for me, then you must help me. But if the Ammonites are too strong for you, then I will help you. Be brave and let's show courage for the sake of our people and for the cities of our God. May the Lord do what he sees fit." So Joab and the troops with him advanced to fight the Arameans, and they fled before him. When the Ammonites saw that the Arameans had fled, they likewise fled before Abishai and entered the city. So Joab returned to Jerusalem. When the Arameans saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they gathered together. Hadadezer sent messengers to bring Arameans from beyond the Euphrates River. They came to Helam, with Shobach the commander of Hadadezer's army leading them. When David was told about this, he gathered all Israel, crossed the Jordan, and went to Helam. The Arameans formed their battle lines to oppose David and fought against him. The Arameans fled before Israel, and David killed 7,000 of their chariot drivers and 40,000 of their foot soldiers. He also killed Shobach, the commander of their army. When all the kings who were Hadadezer's subjects saw that they had been defeated by Israel, they made peace with Israel and became their subjects. So the Arameans were afraid to help the Ammonites anymore. 2 Samuel chapter 11, verses 1 to 27. In the spring, at the time when kings go out to battle, David sent Joab and his officers and the entire Israelite army to destroy the Ammonites and besiege Rabbah. But David stayed in Jerusalem. One evening David got up from his bed and was walking around on the roof of the palace. From the roof he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "Isn't this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite?" Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her menstrual period. Then she returned home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." So David sent a message to Joab, "Send me Uriah the Hittite." And Joab sent Uriah to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was doing, how the army was doing, and how the war was progressing. David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all the king's servants. He did not go down to his house. When they told David, Uriah did not go down to his house. David said to Uriah, "You have just come from a journey. Why didn't you go down to your house?" Uriah said to David, "The ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my master Joab and my lord's servants are camping in the open fields. How can I go to my house to eat and drink and sleep with my wife? As surely as you live, and as surely as the life of your soul lives, I will not do this thing." Then David said to Uriah, "Stay here today also, and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah stayed in Jerusalem that day and the next. David invited Uriah to eat and drink with him, and David got him drunk. But in the evening Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among the king's servants. He did not go down to his house. In the morning David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In the letter he wrote, "Put Uriah in the front line where the battle is fiercest. Then withdraw from him, so that he may be struck down and die." So as Joab was besieging the city, he assigned Uriah to a place where he knew there were some strong enemy soldiers. The soldiers of the city came out and fought with Joab, and some of the men in David's army fell. Uriah the Hittite died as well. Joab sent a report to David about all the events of the battle. He commanded the messenger, "When you have finished telling the king all the events of the battle, and if the king becomes angry and asks you, 'Why did you go so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they would shoot from the wall? Who struck down Abimelech son of Jerubbesheth? Didn't a woman throw an upper millstone on him from the wall so that he died at Thebez? Why did you go so close to the wall?' Then say to him, 'Your servant Uriah the Hittite is also dead.'" The messenger set out and came and reported to David all the things Joab had sent him to tell. The messenger said to David, "The men overpowered us and came out against us in the open field, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city gate. Then the archers shot at your servants from the wall. Some of the king's servants died, including your servant Uriah the Hittite." David said to the messenger, "Say this to Joab, 'Do not be upset about this matter, for the sword devours one as well as another. Strengthen your attack against the city and destroy it. Encourage him in this." When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. When her mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. 2 Samuel chapter 12, verses 1 to 31. The Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, "There were 2 men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb that he had bought. He raised it, and it grew up together with him and his children. It shared his food, drank from his cup, and slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man was unwilling to take one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb of the poor man and prepared it for the man who had come to him. David was furious with the man and said to Nathan, "As surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this deserves to die. He must restore 4 times as much because he did this thing and had no compassion." Nathan replied to David, "You are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you, your master's wives into your arms, and I gave you the house of Israel and Judah. And if that had been too little, I would have added even more to you. Why then have you despised the commandment of the Lord by doing what is evil in his sight? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife as your wife. You have killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now therefore the sword will never leave your house, because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your wife. This is what the Lord says. I will raise up adversity against you from your own household. I will take your wives before your eyes and give them to your neighbor. He will have sexual relations with your wives in broad daylight. You did it secretly, but I will do this thing before all Israel and before the sun." Then David said to Nathan, "I have sinned against the Lord." Nathan replied to David, "The Lord has taken away your sin, you will not die. However, because by doing this you have made the enemies of the Lord show utter contempt, the son born to you will die." Then Nathan went to his home. The Lord afflicted the child that Uriah's wife had borne to David, and it became very sick. David pleaded with God for the child. He fasted, went into his house, and spent the night lying on the ground. The elders of his household stood there beside him. They tried to lift him up from the ground, but he refused, and he would not eat any food with them. On the 7th day the child died. David's servants were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they said, "Look, while the child was still alive, we spoke to him and he didn't listen to what we said. How can we tell him the child is dead? He may do something desperate." But David noticed that his servants were whispering among themselves, and he realized the child was dead. So he asked his servants, "Is the child dead?" They replied, "Yes, he is dead." Then David got up from the ground, washed himself, put on lotions, changed his clothes, went into the Lord's temple and worshipped. Then he went to his own palace, and at his request food was set before him, and he ate. His servants asked him, "Why are you acting this way? While the child was alive, you fasted and wept. But as soon as the child died, you got up and ate food." David replied, "While the child was still alive, I fasted and wept, thinking, perhaps the Lord will be gracious to me and the child will live. But now that he is dead, why should I fast? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him, but he will not return to me." After David comforted his wife Bathsheba, he had sexual relations with her, and she gave birth to a son. They named him Solomon. Now the Lord loved him and sent Nathan to name him Jedidiah, which means beloved by the Lord's command. Meanwhile Joab was fighting against Rabbah of the Ammonites and captured the royal city. Joab sent messengers to David, saying, "I have fought against Rabbah and taken the city's water supply. Now muster the rest of the troops and encamp around the city. I will capture it, and then the city will be named after me." So David mustered the entire army and went to Rabbah. After fighting against it, he captured it. He took the crown from their king's head. It weighed about 75 pounds of gold, and in it were precious gems. He put it on his own head. He also took a great amount of plunder from the city. He brought out the people who were there and made them work with saws, iron picks, and iron axes. He made them work at brickmaking. He did the same to all the Ammonite cities. Then David and all the troops returned to Jerusalem.